Today, Uganda Federal Union is bringing you Attorney Mbiru Musoke to talk about federalism and the sovereignty of the people. This is an important presentation as Ugandans plan to fulfill their aspirations as they plan for a bright future and a democratic government that respects human rights and does not torture its citizens. The future after Museveni. Mr. Mbiru Musoke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. This is Mbiru Musoke on federalism and the liberation of Ugandans. Fellow Ugandans, I greet you in the name of justice, peace, and the sovereignty of the people of Uganda. Without justice, peace, and the protection of human rights, we cannot have democracy. Article 1 of the 1995 Constitution of Uganda declares the people to be sovereign. It is an empty declaration. In order to be sovereign, the people must enjoy the full protection of their human rights. Ugandans cannot be sovereign without democracy. Sovereignty of the people can be viewed from two perspectives, legal and sociological. Chief Justice Marshall of the United States declared in 1803 that the people of the United States were sovereign because the Constitution was the supreme law of the United States. Chief Justice Marshall's declaration meant that any law enacted by Congress of the United States can be declared null and void by the courts if it is inconsistent with the Constitution. Article 2 of the 1995 Constitution of Uganda declares the Constitution of Uganda to be supreme, the supreme law of Uganda. However, the people of Uganda are not sovereign in Uganda because their human rights are abused by the NRM regime all the time. Members of the opposition are prosecuted for treason and for unlawful assembly for simple reason that they dare to oppose and challenge the legitimacy of the NRM regime. During the last election, for example, many Ugandans of the opposition were illegally arrested, killed, or tortured. For those who were tortured, we have seen their scars caused by the torture. Others were not fortunate enough to survive torture, and they are dead. Under these political conditions, the people cannot be sovereign while they are being oppressed by the regime in power. That is the sociological definition of sovereignty of the people. Uganda has domesticated the United Nations Convention Against Torture and the Rome Statute. Both of these treaties strictly prohibit torture, and the commanders of the police and the army responsible for torture are liable for any torture committed by their subordinates under these two treaties, which are already domesticated and form part of the laws of Uganda. None of the commanders have been prosecuted for the crimes they have committed against innocent Ugandans whose human rights have been grossly violated. But we know that torture in Uganda goes on unrestrained. Sovereignty of the people as a sociological reality cannot exist under these circumstances. Sovereignty of the people is a sociological condition and not simply a legal stipulation in the Constitution. For this reason, I introduce to you the Uganda Federal Union. The Uganda Federal Union, incorporated in the United States, is an organization formed by Ugandans with membership all over the world to pursue the establishment of a federal government in Uganda. Members of the Uganda Federal Union are fully aware and also saddened at the same time by the fact that for over half a century, Ugandans have endured suffering in all forms, including atrocities committed by dictatorial and brutal regimes, which have denied Ugandans enjoyment and protection of their human rights to life, to freedom, to security, to economic welfare, and democratic self-governance. There is no doubt that ordinary Ugandans have always desired to live with each other in peace, harmony, tranquility, and peace, justice. Therefore, the suffering Ugandans have endured since independence is the direct result of the brutal regimes which have violated human rights in Uganda, including the NRM. At this time, we believe that all Ugandans are united and determined in their quest to establish justice, democracy, rule of law, and especially to eliminate and eradicate corruption from their country, including all public institutions. It is important to remember that Ugandans believe that a federal system of governance is the best system to achieve their political aspirations. Ugandans are committed to promote and protect democracy, the rule of law, constitutionalism, and sovereignty of all Ugandans by forming the Uganda Federal Union in order to advance these future changes within the Ugandan society. Therefore, our first task is to get rid of the 1995 Constitution. The people cannot govern, be sovereign under the oppressive 1995 unitary Constitution. Clearly, the 1995 Constitution was designed to perpetuate dictatorship in Uganda, as I will explain shortly. Article 3 deals with the so-called defense of the 1995 Constitution. At first, this article sounds normal until you read and understand why it conflicts and contradicts the other provisions of the same constitution protecting human rights and the sovereignty of the people. In other words, the 1995 Constitution purports to declare itself immortal. An immortal constitution is incompatible with the sovereignty of the people because it purports to defy the laws of history and social causation, which inevitably determine social transformation. It is all right for anybody to defend a constitution he believes in, but for us, it is politically abnormal and a violation of liberty and the sovereignty of the people to force anyone, anybody whatsoever, to defend a constitution which he or she does not believe in. Article 20 of the 1995 Constitution makes it clear that, quote, fundamental rights and freedoms of the individual are inherent and not granted by the state, unquote. The word inherent in Article 20 of the 1995 Constitution also means inalienable. The word inalienable is used in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the United States Constitutions. Among the inherent or inalienable fundamental rights of the individual protected by the Constitution, which are not granted by the state, are freedom of speech, freedom of thought and conscience, freedom to assemble and demonstrate, and the freedom of association. In addition to enumerating the inalienable human rights, which are not granted by the state, the Constitution declares the people to be sovereign, and all the all power is supposedly to derive from the Constitution. However, almost in contradiction of the right of the people to enjoy these inherent inalienable rights guaranteed by Article 3, the Article 3 of the 1995 Constitution provides that, quote, this Constitution shall not lose its force and effect, and even where its observance is interrupted by a government established by force of arms, and in any case, as soon as the people recover their liberty, its observance shall be established, and all persons who have taken part in any rebellion or other activity which resulted in the interruption of the observance shall be tried in accordance with this Constitution and other laws consistent with it, unquote. That is Article 3. In other words, the people cannot be sovereign who enjoy their human rights stipulated in the same Constitution, while at the same time they are prohibited to change the same Constitution. Most important, however, is the fact that Article 3, obviously, is not indigenous to Uganda. It was not proposed by the ordinary Ugandans in the 35,000 memoranda submitted by Ugandans from West Nile, from Kigezi, from Karamoja, from Buganda, and from Bushenyi and other areas of Uganda to the Constitutional Commission. In fact, we know the foreign origin of Article 3. It is identical to and was copied from Article 136 of the Mexican Constitution of 1917. It is found in the Title 9 of the Mexican Constitution, which deals with inviolability of the Mexican Constitution. So the Article 3 is not indigenous, was not proposed among the 35,000 memoranda Ugandans submitted to the Constitutional Commission. If the people are sovereign, they have a right to change their constitution anytime through amendments or complete replacement of the entire constitution if the amendment does not achieve their objectives. An existing constitution where the people are sovereign cannot immunize itself against change by the people, as Article 3 of the 1995 Constitution purports to do. That is why I call the 1995 Constitution a kikorigo kya Museveni, which we have to get rid of as soon as possible. We have to remember that in accordance with the laws of history, when social change takes place and the social norms and new values exist in society, these changes are incorporated within the law and the constitution. And therefore, changing the constitution is inevitable because social change is inevitable. In 1995, Uganda constitution is a unitary constitution. You must remember that. It is not, it cannot be amended to convert it into a federal constitution. Such an amendment would be prohibited by the basic structure constitutional doctrine. Therefore, for the Federalists, amending the 1995 Constitution is not an option. The people who are sovereign are free to campaign and replace the 1995 Constitution, which is unitary, with a federal constitution, since you cannot amend it. If Museveni thinks that Ugandans cannot get rid of the 1995 Constitution, the unitary constitution, then we invite him to meet us on the battlefield of ideas, valid social theory, and self-determination. Moreover, a federal constitution protects the sovereignty of the people far better than the 1995 unitary constitution, which was designed for dictators, because it even stipulates that if you overthrow it, you commit treason. Lastly, let us point out the very obvious fact. The makers of the 1995 Constitution purported to have a power they did not possess, namely the power of the Almighty in a constitutional making. When God gave Moses the 10 Commandments, God presumed the fallibility of man and the eternity of the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments cannot be amended by human beings because human beings are infallible, are fallible, and are subject to God's eternal scriptures without any questions asked. Unlike the Ten Commandments given to Moses by God on Mount Sinai, the 1995 Constitution is not a legal scripture for all time and eternity. The US Constitution, which is one of the most durable written constitutions, has been amended 27 times in the last 235 years. The British, who have the most flexible unwritten constitution, have amended their constitution innumerable times. In both cases, the people are sovereign and express their sovereignty in the changes in the law and the constitution, while the constitution and the constitutional principles are protecting the sovereignty of the people. The idea of sovereignty of the people inherent in the strict protection of human rights, such as freedom of speech, association, and assembly, which are prohibited and restricted by NRM regime, are important parts of the sovereignty of the people. And it assumes that no legal canons can remain the same forever while society is being transformed by the laws of history and social change. The people, as a sovereign, have the inherent power to change any constitution by force, if necessary, through a political revolution, as the British did in 1215 when they enacted the Magna Carta, and 1689 when the supremacy of the monarchy was rendered subordinate to the people, who thereby became sovereign, or the Americans in 1776 when they declared their independence. If repressive leaders resist demands of the sovereign people and suppress their human rights, the people possess the inherent power of sovereignty to overthrow a regime and change the constitution designed for and enshrined in a dictatorship or the repressive regime like NRM. My communication next time will deal with federalism and my land in Uganda. Thank you for listening. This is Mubiru Musoke on federalism and the sovereignty of the people.